Hello, 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 and welcome to Unique Leaders Live. I'm Megan DiMartino, and today is my favorite day of the week. It's Friday, and not because it's the weekend here, but because of Unique Leaders Live. I am so excited to have my guest with us today, and I say us because this Unique Leaders is for you, to hear their story. My guests are profound. They're all on YouTube. You can go there and hear the amazing stories of my past unique leaders, and also on iTunes and all of the other podcasting platforms. But this is about my guest story, and today is Sara McCord. Sara is with me, and Sara is the, I'm not sure, the CEO or the COO, or maybe both, of the Breakfast with Champions Glenn Lundy empire. But Sara will share all of that and her story with that. And therefore, I want to have this time for Sara to share this very rich story as we go into this new year. There's so much happening, not only in your life, my life, but the world. And we all need that hope and infinite possibilities just over the horizon. And as I always say, it's never too early or too late to create the life of your dreams. That is my book. It's for you on Instagram. It's for you on my website, Megan DiMartino Live. And it will hopefully give you hope and infinite possibilities. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my guest today, Sara McCord.
Hi, Megan. How are you?
Hello.
I'm so grateful to be here.
So good to be here and so excited to have you with me today. This is a very special day. We're ending the year with an amazing story. I know very little about you, and I'm excited about that. Just little, pieces here and there that I've gleaned from you sharing on Breakfast with Champions over the last 6-8 months. But do tell us, Sara, where you were born and a little bit about young Sara and what, kind of the breadcrumbs, so to speak, that led you to this amazing place you are today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. So I was born in the Washington, D.C. area, and I think that actually has always informed my desire to be of service. I know you said not to jump ahead, but I did. I interned on the Hill in college. My first job out of school was at the National Nonprofit for the UN Refugee Agency, and for sure, that stemmed from growing up outside Washington, D.C. and having family and family friends who were involved in either the public interest or in government or in the media, in press. And that was really impactful on me. You know, when I think of a childhood memory that kind of shares the breadcrumbs of where I am today, I share this story. I actually shared it on the Breakfast with Champions stage once because I think I've had a pretty consistent brand pretty much my whole life. So my mom is one of those moms who shared like every paper I ever brought home. And I was cleaning something out of my childhood room once, and I found this paper from about the second grade. And it was this exercise where it said, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? And second grade Sara wrote, I would give books to everyone in the entire world so everyone could read. Mm-hmm. I would give food to everyone in the entire world so no one was hungry. And I would get bikinis for the beach. And I think that's true to who I am today. I still wish that I could, solve literacy, hunger, and go to the beach. 100%. It's who I was then. That's who I am now.
So what was your favorite beach? Because I am a New York girl, grew up on Long Island, so I'm a beach girl myself. and I did go to college at Marymount on Glebe Road in
Nice.
Arlington, Virginia.
Amazing.
So we have some connections here. But what are in that area? What are your favorite beaches? Because I fell in love with several of them there in that Washington area.
Yeah, so I mean, as a child, when we'd go to the beach when I was young, we'd go to Ocean City, Maryland, for sure. We also have family who lives out on the Eastern Shore by St. Michael. And then as an adult, I love family vacations to Hilton Head. That's like a really
hmm
special place that we take the
hmm
girls.
hmm I love St. Michael's. I had the opportunity to spend some weekends there. The Chesapeake Bay is just a beautiful body of water. It's very special, really is. Great food too.
Oh, the crabs. I mean, come on. Nobody doesn't like Maryland.
Great food. So where'd you go to college?
I went to Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
hmm I have heard of that. A lot of, again, Northeast kids stay in the Northeast, like Texans stay in Texas. So it's an
I
interesting
was
thing.
actually the first one in my family not to go to the University of Maryland. So even though I only went 2.5 hours away, I mean, parents, uncles, aunts, my brother, everyone else in my family went to the University of Maryland. When I said I want to go to Pennsylvania, that was like, Sarah's really spreading her wings. So
Right, right, right. It wasn't like you're going to, Stanford. You were going, like you said, a couple of hours away.
yeah,
So you went to college, and I do know this from some stories that you've shared that you met your husband in college. Is that correct?
I did. I met him at a Valentine's Day party my senior year.
hmm So was that love at first sight, or what
It
happened with that?
absolutely was. I was like, who's this handsome man who I haven't seen around campus yet? And we love telling people that we met on Valentine's Day. So
hmm hmm And so there, you finished college, and then what happened from there?
So I finished college. I pursued my dream of moving to Washington, D.C. and trying to change the world. I lived at 1500 Mass. I worked in a building on K Street at the National Nonprofit for the UN Refugee Agency. And career wise, it was really invigorating. But my now husband was coaching football at that time. We were just dating at Bucknell, also in Pennsylvania.
hmm
And I moved up there, and my career path followed his career path for the first decade or so while he was coaching up and down the East Coast. But I'm so grateful because one thing I will say is I actually was in a room or a show on Fireside a few weeks back, and someone was leading a talk on the Great Resignation and saying how remote work is so new. Well, because my husband was coaching football and I was constantly moving for him, I've been working remotely for media publications for over a decade,
hmm
and then founding my own communications firm. So it really, what at first seemed like a almost throwing a wrench in my career because I didn't have that opportunity to stay in one place and climb up the corporate ladder in a stereotypical
hmm
kind of standard geographic way or move for my job. I was always kind of starting over every couple of years. It actually pushed me into the digital space
hmm
before many people were. So I was
hmm
finding clients online and connecting with thought leaders online and writing for publications online and communicating remotely and managing people remotely. I've been doing that for over a decade. So it really ended up kind of putting both of our careers on a rocket ship, even though I didn't know that at the time.
hmm Well, there are two things that when you shared this, first of all, it birthed or birthed and strengthened, and maybe not either, but your flexibility, because what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing today takes tremendous flexibility. So you learned that muscle, or you built that muscle of that flexibility,
Yeah.
and to think on your feet, around the box, in the box, as they say. So the other is that. I think about, and when you were sharing that, I have been in sales, national sales, all of my business career, with the exception of the last, 17 years when I built this spa business. And I was working remotely forever too,
Mm-hmm.
because you had to, I had a staff, but you were always communicating and connecting online and offline. So yes, it's fascinating. But I think that flexibility is a great key, as we were talking earlier about sustainability,
Yeah.
because you will be burnt out if you don't know how to be flexible.
Absolutely. I agree with that
Mhm.
100%. And I think too, it taught me how to build new relationships kind of over and over and over. And initially I was really resentful, to be candid. I was really resentful of all of my friends from college who just like moved to the same place and stayed friends. I was really resentful of everyone who like, you know, whoever they were around when they had their first baby was their same friend set when they had their second baby and their third baby. Like I kept having to reinvent my close circle every couple of years. But now I can see that all of those challenges were a skill set that I can really pull from today that I'm really grateful for.
Mm-hmm. And so today you both, your family lives in the Maryland area, correct?
Yes, we're in Maryland. Mac got out of coaching college football around 2017. He's in real estate now. And we moved back to my hometown to raise our girls around my family, which I'm super grateful for. And it's just we live in one of the most diverse areas of the entire nation. And it's where we wanted to be to raise our family.
Mm-hmm. And so real estate, that is a change. Has that been challenging for Mac, or is he, full steam ahead? Is he thrilled with that change?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I think we really got right is when Mac decided he wanted to make the move out of coaching, which had always been a love of his because he wanted more time with the family. We didn't rush. Like he took a little bit of time to kind of really think and reflect and explore. And he landed on real estate because of really all of the synergies of, connecting with people, helping them make big decisions. It's very relationship driven. There were some synergies there, and he still volunteer coaches football, which he really enjoys as well.
What would you say, Sarah, to, like you shared earlier about people saying about learning to do business remotely? And you said, I've been doing that for years. What would you share with our guests that are watching today, going into a new year, of what muscle and what skill set would you say is the most important thing, on some level from a business position, but just even life, from developing that flexibility and doing, and then we'll go into what you're doing currently. But what would you say to a young woman, like you said, you were resentful that you were, not with your girls from, wherever that, team, the tribe was, that you had to keep reinventing. Just share a few points before we go on.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the key is communication. And not just because I'm a communication strategist, but I really think when you pull on that thread in a few different ways, that's what makes working remotely possible. So first, I would say I was actually in a Clubhouse room earlier this year hosted by James Somerville, who formerly did branding for Coca-Cola. And it was a room around remote work. And he posed the question that he was saying he thought that in real life, the most important part of the meeting was the walk from the entrance of the building to the elevator. He thought that was the most important part of the meeting. Yeah. And he was kind of having this dialogue around how do you recreate that on a Zoom call? And I tapped in. I feel grateful to call him a friend. So we were kind of chatting and having this conversation. And I said, you are so right. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make working remotely is that they remove that. They think that because it's a Zoom call, the moment everyone's on, they just launch right into what the theme of the day is, but taking the time to build in that space for humanity and that communication, because you usually have those 5 minutes. Hey, how are you? How was the trip? How was the family? Did you watch the game this weekend? Did you cook something great for Thanksgiving? Did you travel? And unfortunately, too many people with remote work eliminate that because they don't have that walk to the elevator. So first, you need that human to human communication to build those relationships and to keep that going. I am someone who is religious about building that time in on Zoom calls. On a phone call, I will always say, how are you? How is your day going? And I want to hear the answer. So communication on that front is really important. And then over communicating your status. So it's almost like accommodating for all of the touch points that you don't have. So you don't have the walk from the lobby doors to the elevator. You also don't have the bumping into each other's desks or the walk to the break room at lunch. Or the 2-second chat over the copier. And so you have to recreate all of those things. And you have to understand that that's actually not a loss of productivity. That's actually an increase in touch points and collaboration and synergy on the team. Absolutely. So it's important to, I would find out what the communications preferences are of your team. Is it email? Is it text? Is it Slack? Is it GChat? What is it? Find out what it is. and then have those touch points throughout the day. Like, I'll be candid with you, I text Glenn all day long because we're building a business together. You know what I mean? And
Yes, I do. I do.
So like, perfect example, this incredible room that we did with Tiffany Haddish for Giving Tuesday, we were texting each other the whole time of, this happened in the room, this happened in the room, this happened in the room, to make sure that we're always like, synced up and we never miss anything. There will be times when we're both in the room and we're both listening and we're still texting each other. Like, did you hear that? That's incredible. We should follow up with that person. Don't take those moments for granted, because if you were in person, you'd bump into each other later and talk about it.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
create those spaces remotely, for sure.
Yeah. We're going to get into Clubhouse, but like you just said about the walk from in the lobby to the elevator, I was sharing with someone just yesterday how I am happy that the 5,000-pound gorilla of my brick and mortar business is off my shoulders. But the thing that I miss more than anything is that communication. And I said, I really know that that's one of the reasons that Clubhouse has so resonated with me, because it is that networking, that communication, connection. And then when you do meet people offline, in real life, it's so special because we know each other, and we've connected. So we've, like you said, how was the weekend? How was the turkey? You've connected.
Totally.
So it is that specialness of it. It is truly, but you're right, that Zoom meeting, which can be so cut and dry. I think that's the other thing that people are loving about Unique Leaders is it's about you. It's about your story, that people can glean about Sara, and then that backstory of you. And then when they hear you, not see you specifically, but on Clubhouse, it makes it that much more real and more special.
Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting time that we're in. So we suggest to everyone heartily to connect, but you're so right that not only was today special, but there's so many moments in time like that. But you're building a business, girl, and it's going to sustain by
Thank
building
you.
that base. That base
Thank
is
you.
so important. So you have mentioned Clubhouse several times, but before we go into it, so right before going, or let's say Clubhouse itself started, what were you doing in your career?
So as I said, I got my start in editorial about a decade ago, writing for top publications across the web. And then in 2017, I launched my own communications firm, working with thought leaders and businesses of all sizes on growth-driven communication strategies and supporting content. So that's what I was doing. And I joined Clubhouse and I was energized. I just saw the potential. So I know that I mentioned James Somerville, but I remember the first time that I was on a stage, and here I am, I'm a marketing strategist, I'm a communication strategist, but I was on stage with James Somerville of Coca-Cola and Julie Lyle of Walmart and, Walt Geer of VLMYR and Dahlia Strum and like all of these just like luminaries. And we're all workshopping and talking about marketing together. And that was back when you'd have those marathon rooms where small business owners would come in and raise their hand, and all of these people would just workshop together. And there was something so special about those access points that I'd never seen.
Never.
I have also a friend who says that Clubhouse puts relationships in a microwave. I was seeing these, meaningful relationships built so rapidly. I was seeing these impactful connections. I was just seeing this whole world. It's like stories people tell when people who never realized they needed glasses got glasses, or never realized they needed a hearing aid got a hearing aid, and they experience this like additional dimension. That's literally how I felt about Clubhouse, that there was this dimension that I'd never experienced. And the one other kind of experience that I connected with, and I've mentioned this on stage, I'm sure you've heard, is that my fitness journey several years ago began with Tone It Up.
Yeah.
And through Instagram, through Tone It Up's Instagram community, I made real life best friends. I met girls through Instagram who were doing Tone It Up with me, and it started in the DMs, and then we became friends. Like one of my best friends in the whole world, my girls call her Aunt B. I met through Instagram. And we met in person for the first time at a fitness tour meetup. So I have already seen that model where like-hearted people come together on a social media platform and build true and impactful relationships. So I 100% believed in the premise of Clubhouse for good because I'd already seen it on Instagram.
Absolutely. And, I'll never forget one evening. It was early on, but I was in some room, and John Leisure from, T-Mobile was in there, and he was talking about, and you could tell he was drinking a glass of wine. He was relaxed. He mentioned it, and he was in this large home, and he was talking so transparently, Sarah, about the fact that he was in this large home, and that he was commenting on someone and their life and how they were married and had a successful relationship. Here's this guy that built T-Mobile and is sharing about his own personal life. And I was like, this is extraordinary.
Absolutely. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. It was access like I'd never seen and I'd never experienced. And there's something special there for sure. For sure.
And it's just evolving from there. I mean, there was a certain element of those early days that people still had that mentality of being, locked in, that prompted that. But on the other side of the coin, it truly, like you said, it was on in a microwave and exploding. And I mean, you see like Grant Cardone popping in your room this morning. But before we go there, so let's go. So you started going into all these rooms, and we're just so excited about it. And the first time I heard of Sara McCord was for the consortium in New York.
Yes.
So, and that's where you joined forces with Glenn. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was spending my time before Breakfast with Champions on a lot of marketing stages. And that's where I built a lot of the relationships with the moderators that I was so grateful to bring in. I always joke that I popped into Breakfast with Champions and Glenn never pulled me up for about 6 months. And that's why y'all don't know me better. I joke with him about that a little bit. But yeah, so the New York event was a really definitive moment, I would say, in my career. So Glenn and I came to find about 9 days before the event that we were really in a sink or swim situation, which we hadn't anticipated. And part of the reason why we developed such a trust so quickly was that either one of us could have left the other one holding the bag. And we didn't, which is kind of amazing for someone who you've never met in person, you've never worked with. Like, we both had an opportunity to jump off of a sinking ship. But when Glenn says like-hearted, we both were like, no, you know what? People bought tickets to this because of us. We used our voice. We vouched for this. We said we were going to throw an incredible event. Some circumstances happened that were out of our control, but we've told people that we were going to serve. And then we were like, so like, there's no, what do they say? Like, there, like, there's no do or do not, there's no try, or there's no fail, or whatever that famous quote is. Like, it was like, we said we were going to do it. We're going to find a way to do it. And it was the first time that we saw that we had completely differentiated yet complementary strengths, and the same core values. And so in 9 days, you were there. We pulled off an event that I thought was pretty incredible.
It was extraordinary. It was extraordinary.
And but it was definitely a relationship forged through fire. I mean, like, I learned in those 9 days that I could trust Glenn Lundy. He learned that he could trust me, and we learned that we worked really well together. And I remember in the process of that event, him saying, I want you to come on and run Breakfast with Champions. And I just kept saying, can we just survive this event? But it was an incredible experience because I got to meet so many members of the Breakfast with Champions community in New York. And once you do, and once you see Glenn and his element and what Breakfast with Champions is all about, that's when I was like, wait, he's actually offering me like the most special opportunity of all time. And I would be crazy not to take him up on it. So,
and I'm sure that and I mean and knew then that, but certainly know now, that he was not idly saying that to you, that he had, as I say, there's no accidents. And, your words become things, and that he knew that he could not. That's what I was saying to Regina, that change has to evolve. You can't just stay and keep doing that Hollywood production every day and build Breakfast with Champions. I mean, it's impossible. You burn out. And he knew that he needed someone of your caliber and your integrity and your intellect and your humor and everything else rolled into one
Thank
that
you.
could work in tandem and synergistically with he and his vision, mission, and values. So it's very, I being there, yes, and I am I liken myself to. Someone said, "Who's my avatar?" And I said, Kermit the Frog. And the person said, Kermit the Frog. And I said, yeah, he's kind of a reserved loudmouth. And that's kind of me, because I'm an observer. And I knew that there were some changes, but there was no scent of challenge, Sarah. None,
Thank you.
none, none. It was just, and you couldn't argue that the view wasn't spectacular looking over the skyline of New York
Yeah,
City
it
and the
was
59th
it was
Street Bridge.
incredible. And here's the thing, I have to give Glenn so much credit, because what he built with Breakfast with Champions in those first 8 months was nothing short of extraordinary. And then I think that there are very few people who would have the self-awareness and the humility to have built out an entire movement, and the 4 years leading up to that, and then say, and I need to bring in someone with a completely different skill set to fight with me all the time to build it out with me. I give him a lot of credit for that, for sure, undoubtedly.
Well, he's a smart guy. I mean, his wife, Leslie, is
I
not
love
a
her.
carbon copy. I mean, so he understands that you need that yin and yang,
Absolutely.
to
And
work
I
together.
just, you know, but to your point again, he had the vision where he was like, I want to build a media empire,
Yes.
Let's do this. And how
Yes.
do you say no to that? Actually, I did a few times, but then but then I said yes, and I'm so glad I did.
But he also has, again, as an observer, he's also given you the opportunity, because of his personality and the structure of what it is, to give you the opportunity to just evolve with it, you know,
Absolutely.
and step back, look, go forward, and move. And it's just been a joy to watch and to observe and to see it grow and evolve.
Thank you.
And some of my contemporaries, let's just say that, are like, what are you doing? I went to a book signing for my dear friend Rebecca Contreras, who has an extraordinary story. And that's what people always ask me, Sarah, I see you on Clubhouse all the time. Why? And I just don't get it. They didn't necessarily mean me. They meant for themselves.
Yeah.
And these are successful women, in the not just Austin market, but in business.
Yeah.
And I have learned to not say too much. I just say it's the best. And these women are familiar with networking, and I just say it's the best networking component out there. So an opportunity, and that's my pat answer. Because if you're not going to get it, you're right. You can't drag someone along. They have to want to. And that's like what you said about your relationship with Glenn. You're both bringing so much to the breakfast table, and growing it and building it. And who knows? Look at Fireside, like you mentioned,
Yep.
and other things that are happening. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, you raised an interesting point. I will say something that I'm very focused on is how we grow Breakfast with Champions. And you raise an interesting point that there is sort of an element of educating and evangelizing social audio to get people on the platform to experience it. Because I think, to your point, once people have experienced it, I think it was TM who at one point said to Glenn that he used to watch, it was either the Today Show or Good Morning America, religiously every single morning. But since Breakfast with Champions, he was like, I just realized I haven't watched it in like 8 months. And I think that's really how powerful Breakfast with Champions is. People do want to start their day with us, but we have to get over that initial hurdle of educating them not only on the programming, but also on the technology. Because there are some people who are just hesitant to the technology. Why would I get on Clubhouse? And one of the things that we're really thinking through right now, and actually one of my goals and hopes with the live events, is to bring in people who maybe have yet to explore social audio, but are excited about a live event, that they'll come, they'll engage with the community, they'll meet the moderators, and then we can get them to join Clubhouse is my hope. And Fireside and all of the other places and spaces.
Right. The other platforms. No, I agree. I think that, and that I've shared that on some level about going to these live events, that it comes alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That that I've made, I'm going to use the word superficially. I don't feel that way, but yet, let's just use it. But then go to the live event and connect. And there's, I'll never forget going to the first live event I went to was Denver, and having gone into the social media room. Well, why did I go into the social media room? I went into the social media room because I am pushing myself, Sarah, to, because again, this all doesn't come that easily to me,
You'd
but
never know.
Thank you. But I've been pushing myself for 30 years, I mean, when I started Like Leak, there was no Mr. Google there. There was no website. There was no, nothing existed. So I've had to push myself along. So basically, and that's what I've said to people at say, of social functions, is that, it's nothing different than as networking. It's just in a different structure.
Mm-hmm.
But you then lace it together with a in real time, that relationship exponentially grows. It's not just marginally growing, it's exponentially, because of the fact that you've, like some of your stories, right?
Yeah.
You hear into John Ledger, hello, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you hear these intimate things that people share about their lives, which are appropriate in the point of reference that they're speaking about.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's an
Absolutely.
interesting time. So you are are doing a January consortium. So very much the same platform as the New York consortium, smaller.
Yes, it's going to have a similar platform. So we're going to have kind of a get together with drinks and informal, and everyone just kind of socialize, that old school fun on the night of the 6th, and then 2 days with speakers and workshopping on the 7th and 8th. And we're really theming it around Glenn's Morning 5 planner. And the idea that if you change the way you start your day, it'll make a massive impact on your life, because that's proven. It's literally proven that if you change the way you start your day, it'll change your life. And I think that in the first 2 weeks of the new year, people are consistently looking for that answer. They're looking for that solution. They're looking for, how can I make 22 different than 2021? And when we were talking about when are we going to throw an event at the beginning of the year, we wanted to get in that magic window where people still believe in possibility, where people are still making their resolutions, where people still feel that if they get the tools and the tactics and the information that they need, that they can change their year. So we didn't want to wait until the end of January, till when statistically most people have already stopped going to the gym and have given up on that business goal because they didn't actually get the resources they needed. But we wanted to bring together the leaders and the moderators who can pour into the audience and give them what they need in early January to really make it a transformative year. And I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, well, I love the format, and I am a prime example of that morning routine because first off, I don't need a lot of sleep. It's just by the grace of God, I don't need a lot of sleep.
How much is not a lot?
Well, about 4 hours. I mean, it's
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Now when I sleep 6 hours, that's a lot of, and it's a big but, it's back to what he says. It's the way you start your day. So with that, I didn't sleep till 8, 9 o'clock, but I stayed up too late because I just kept working or doing and then shutting off and quieting down a bit. And so I would go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, go to sleep at 2, and wake up at 6.
Wow.
So, but that's not a good thing to do. But I did that for years. I'm talking about my adult life. And so when I started hanging around that morning routine, because I wanted to connect, and I'm talking about Rise and Grind now. And so that I didn't do it immediately every day. I didn't, but I did evolve to it. I did. And
Wow.
so it's really changed my life, really in a very positive way.
Wow. Well, I mean, and that's why I just said I feel so fortunate that Glenn recruited me to come on to Breakfast with Champions, because being a part of thousands of people saying that to me, sending me messages and telling me that, the media company that I'm a part of had a positive impact on their life, it kind of goes back to that thread that I was talking about at the very beginning. It's
Mhm,
always been my goal to make a difference. So
mhm, mhm.
to get to do so with content, which has been a love of mine in my career for years, is just extraordinary.
I'm thrilled for you
Thank
that this
you.
has come into your life, for your life, with your life, and then for, Glenn as well, because it really is just going to be an exciting journey to see it evolve.
Thank you so much.
And speaking of evolving, our time, I can't believe, is coming to a close. And I'd like to leave a little time for this. This is a question I ask everyone, Sarah, sort of like Glenn, on the
The
top of
mountaintop.
but I've mentioned Sharon Lecter several times in one of her books, which I'm sure you might have read, but it's 3 Feet from Gold, with written with Greg Reed. And it's a story about a gentleman during the gold rush days, and he had gold fever and went west and bought his property and chiseled away and became very frustrated and gave up ultimately and sold his property to a townie. And that guy in 3 feet struck gold. So we've all had those types of experiences.
Yeah.
But in this book, and that's a fiction, but then it becomes a bit autobiographical in reference to Greg Reed's life. But in that, Sharon has what she calls, and she uses this success formula through much of her teachings, but it is your passion times talent times action plus association plus faith equals success. Now, I'm not going to ask you all of those, and we've talked about some of this,
Yeah.
but what is your passion and what is your talent?
Wow. I think my passion is really great content that serves. And I think that my talent is spotlighting and uplifting others to bring out their strongest possible content.
Very good. I mean, that's an answer that people have not shared before. And the content. So I'm going to ask you to expound upon that a
Yeah.
bit. So, meaning, and I understand what you have done through your career, but meaning, so when I hear that, I hear that content, whether it is in book form, article form, um, a blog form, and then it is conveyed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I
The
mean,
message?
so I definitely took it in a professional sense. You said, "What's my passion?" Obviously, I'm passionate about my
Hmm.
kids. I'm passionate about so many
Yes.
things in the world.
Yes.
But I think for me, at its heart, I think content is storytelling. And I think
Hmm.
when we go back to the beginning of time, and for me, that again, I know we keep coming back to this, is why social audio is so powerful, is that historically, right, the most, I think, influential members of societies, right? You had
Hmm.
your chief, you had your medicine man, and you had your storytellers. You had the people
Hmm.
who held the history of the culture and passed that down from person to person. So we've known since the beginning of time, it's been a sacred place. Who are our storytellers? Who holds our stories? Who can teach us? Who can teach the next generation? And so when we think about great content, it's the storytellers, it's the
I see.
teachers.
I
And
see.
those are the people who I think recall our past and also shape our future. And
Hmm.
so I think that, sometimes we think about churning out content, or we think about content, it almost as like a methodology or a piece of marketing, but at its heart, content reflects and shapes cultures. It's like they say, art imitates life, life imitates art. I think content, is like the heart of the world. You know what I mean?
I
And
do.
then
Wow.
um, something that I feel really grateful about is that I have developed a skill over my career that I do think has been a talent, which is to help others share their greatest content. So I literally I wasn't just a writer at the Muse, I was an editor, and I worked with our contributors and columnists.
Mhm.
And now on Clubhouse, kind of listening for people. And I'll say it's a joy for me, as much as I love when someone says, I loved your segment today. It
Mhm.
is equally, or probably more so, joyous for me when someone shoots me a note and they're like, I just heard so-and-so speak, who you brought into Breakfast with Champions, and I'm so glad you did, because they
Mhm.
taught me this and
Mhm.
this and this and this. And
Mhm.
like, that's amazing for me that I heard someone and I was able to give them a microphone and they changed someone else's day. That's incredible.
This, as we go into this new year, that gives me such hope, because we all hear about how the narrative of the news media is being directed and controlled, and whether that's true or not, regardless, what you just shared, Sarah, of being your passion. But I couldn't agree more that that is what this whole clubhouse is, as well as specifically Breakfast with Champions is sharing the narrative, the story. And that is giving, because I myself get, even going to Lexington or back channel, but going to Lexington, people walked up to me and said, I write down what you say. You do? It's like I
Yeah,
didn't say it to them, but I mean, I was there only one day, and it was just, and I met a fraction of the people there, but it was so encouraging to me to hear that even the little bit I do share makes a difference, and it
yeah,
is that storytelling, it's
absolutely.
that narrative, and it is that sharing, and that is that it's not manipulated. It's one's truth. Wow, that's wonderful, Sarah. Thank you
Thank
for sharing that.
you.
Well, thank you again for truly being here with me on a very special day. And I know that it's going to impact so many people. And I truly look forward to seeing you in real time in Houston, Texas in January, or
I
the
can't wait.
few days going forward. And it'll be great. So
I can't wait.
thank you, my love. Really,
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun, and I look forward to seeing you in Breakfast with Champions.
yes, ma'am. I'll be there. Be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. What a special edition of Unique Leaders Live. And this will be a podcast next week in our new year. But as you saw and heard, and you will hear and be able to hear forever on all the podcasting platforms, the journey of Sara McCord and who she is and what she brings to the world. Breakfast with Champions, if you have not been on Clubhouse, do join, do come in, get the app, and join us every every morning at 5 a.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. And it's extraordinary, guys. It really is extraordinary because Sarah has touched upon this a bit, but it is the individuals that have given their time, extraordinary people that share not only their personal stories, but nuggets and really master classes, really, of how to do certain things in business, whether it's starting, scaling, sustaining, encouragement experts, um, literary experts, it just travel experts. It just goes on and on. So I really heartily suggest, it's been an impactful journey for me in 2021. It truly has made a huge difference in my life, my evolution, my goals, what I'm doing in my businesses, for you. So truly do join us on Clubhouse, which is, 24/7. But Breakfast with Champions is Monday through Friday from 5 o'clock Eastern through, I believe, 11 noon Eastern. And then on Sunday for a very special spiritual service based on Romans 1:11. So it is just a beautiful, beautiful programming through Glenn Lundy, who was the founder of Rise and Grind. I'm giving Glenn, a lot of plugs here because he's been so impactful in my life and so many others. And it's just beginning, as Sarah shared. But Sarah had a second grade. She knew what she wanted to do, and she just continued on with that. So many of us do know what we want to do, but we get so bogged down by our lives and what is going on in our lives. And it is just about understanding that vision that you have, believe it, know it in your heart, and take action. Take that first step. The second and third step will be revealed to you. You just have to keep going. Stopping is what is going to end that. And even if you continue on some level with your dream, if you stop what you're doing, it might alter, just like Glenn evolved from daily with Rise and Grind into a Clubhouse. But again, he was on um, um, well, he did special segments of Rise and Grind through the holiday season. So the thing is, that's not going to end, but it has changed and has altered and evolved to the Breakfast with Champions, and then bringing Sara on back in in the summer, and then evolving it even further. So I just really encourage you to go on to Clubhouse and join us at Breakfast with Champions. As I shared, I don't get to see family much or friends for so many reasons, but one is basically travel. And it's such an opportunity to really build relationships with others. So, with that said, my book, Hope and Possibilities, Just Over the Horizon. It's never too early or too late to create the life of your dreams. And during the lockdown in March of 20, I put it on my Megan DiMartino website, which you can go to and put your information in and download it as a PDF. But you can also go to Instagram, where and follow me. And there, when you follow me, there's different links to things that I'm doing, such as Unique Leaders. Also, I've started a Facebook page called Heart Link, based on my Clubhouse room, which is the club itself is Hope and Possibilities, but the room is the Heart Link, and that's on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock Eastern. So from there, I started the Facebook group because my ultimate goal is to do a book this year for everyone to share their their hope stories, their stories of hope, that we can then do a book, a compilation of everyone's stories, like my book, Hope and Possibilities, to put it up on Amazon. So do join me on Clubhouse, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 Central, doing time zones in my brain, and on Tuesdays for the Heart Link. But anytime, go to Facebook and become a Facebook group member of the Heart Link. So I would so appreciate that. And then we're going to be doing a webinar in about a week. And then from there, we're going to introduce the course called Propel, Business and Life Activation. So a lot going on, other things too, but that's the most important piece that I worked on all during 21. But nonetheless, it was so impacted by Clubhouse. So that's why I so wanted Sara to be with me on New Year's Eve for this very special day going into 2022. So, folks, thank you for joining me. We've done a year and a half of segments, and we're so excited to continue on in 2022 with some extraordinary guests and their lineup. But don't forget, you can go to YouTube right now and subscribe and hear Sharon Lechter, Greg Reed, Glenn Lundy, Brian Hess, Scott Simon, Lisa Copeland, and many, many others. Tremendous stories of their stories of life, their stories of hope, their stories of never stopping. So do go. And then, of course, on all the podcasting platforms. So Tuesday, Sara's will be up, but all of the other guests that we've had all through this year, 2021, and starting at Easter time of 2020 is there as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful new year, and we'll see you soon in 2022. Be blessed.